At the dawn of independence in 1964, Zambia stood as one of Africa's wealthiest nations. Its vast copper deposits had fueled a thriving economy, and its GDP per capita rivaled that of South Korea. The hope that shimmered across the new republic was as bright as the metal beneath its soil. Yet, within a generation, that promise had curdled into a cautionary tale of mismanagement, external shocks, and the painful search for a new path. The story of Zambia's economic development is a dramatic narrative of ambition, crisis, and survival, a journey that has profoundly shaped the nation its people know today. If you're enjoying this journey through history, please give the video a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring more stories to life. Seedling emoji, the First Republic, state-led development, and Zambian Humanism. President Kenneth Kaunda inherited an economy dominated by foreign-owned copper mines and a small commercial farming sector. His guiding philosophy, Zambian Humanism, sought to decolonize the economy and place it in the hands of the people. This ideology translated into a bold, state-led development strategy. The government invested copper revenues into ambitious projects, building schools, hospitals, and infrastructure that dramatically expanded access to public services. The cornerstone of this policy was the Malanashi Reforms of April 1968. The government declared its intention to acquire majority equity holdings, usually 51% or more, in key foreign-owned firms, which would be controlled by a parastatal conglomerate, the Industrial Development Corporation (Indeco). By January 1970, the state had taken majority control of the two major foreign mining corporations, merging them into the new parastatals, NCCM and RCM. The government then created the Mining Development Corporation, Mindeco, and the Finance and Development Corporation, Findeco, to control insurance and building societies. In 1971, these were all brought under the Zambia Industrial and Mining Corporation, ZIMCO, a massive parastatal with President Kaunda as its chairman. For a few years, this approach seemed to work. Copper prices were high, and the state used its windfall to build a modern, if fragile, economy. However, the seeds of future trouble were already being sown in inefficiency and overreach. Chart with downwards trend emoji, the long decline, external shocks, and internal mismanagement. The good times came to a crashing halt in the mid-1970s. A perfect storm of external shocks devastated Zambia's copper-dependent economy. In 1973, the OPEC oil crisis sent fuel prices soaring, while simultaneously, global copper prices began a historic collapse, plummeting from $1.40 per pound in April 1974 to just 53 US cents in early 1975. Since copper exports had never accounted for less than 90% of Zambia's foreign exchange earnings, the impact was catastrophic. The economy went into a tailspin. Zambia's response was to borrow heavily, assuming the downturn was temporary. Instead, external debt skyrocketed from $814 million to $3.2 billion in the 1970s, then doubled again to $6.9 billion in the 1980s, consuming 83% of every dollar earned through exports. The nationalized industries, particularly the mines, became symbols of inefficiency and corruption. Production plummeted from a peak of 750,000 tons in 1973 to just 230,000 tons by 2000. The state, once a provider, became a burden. Desperate to stop the bleeding, Kaunda launched the new Economic Recovery Program, NELP, in 1987, aiming to diversify the economy and cap debt servicing. For a brief moment, GDP grew by 6.7%, but international lenders, led by the IMF and World Bank, demanded immediate repayment. By July 1989, Zambia knelt, re-engaging with the very institutions that had prescribed the policies that failed. By 1990, the country was racked by food riots and an attempted coup. The people had lost patience. Collision emoji, the 1990s, structural adjustment and the Great Privatization, the 1991 election of Frederick Chiluba, and the movement for multi-party democracy, MMD, marked a radical break with the past. The new government launched one of the most orthodox structural adjustment programs, SAPs, in Africa, a sweeping agenda of economic liberalization, demanded by the IMF and World Bank. The state, once the engine of development, was now the obstacle. The government abolished foreign exchange controls, floated the kwacha, liberalized trade, and removed agricultural subsidies. It then embarked on a massive privatization program, which the World Bank would dub the best on the continent. The centerpiece was the sale of the giant Zambia Consolidated Copper Mines, ZCCM, which was broken up and sold in 1998 for just $627 million. The results of this shock therapy were deeply mixed. The economy stabilized and inflation fell, but the social costs were immense. Urban poverty exploded, unemployment soared, and inequality widened. The liberalization of agricultural marketing hurt remote farmers, while the removal of subsidies on mealie meal, the staple food, devastated the urban poor. The government had sold the family silver, but many felt they had been left with nothing. Chart with upwards trend emoji, the 2000s and beyond, growth, debt, and the search for stability. The 2000s brought a new commodity boom, driven by China's insatiable demand for copper. Between 2001 and 2010, Zambia's GDP grew at an impressive average of 7.7% annually. This growth, however, was unequal. It primarily benefited urban areas, while rural poverty remained stubbornly high. The number of people living below the poverty line actually increased by about 2.5 million between 1996 and 2015. The new millennium also saw a return to some statist ideas. President Michael Sata, 2011-14, attempted to revive a more interventionist approach focused on local content and industrial policy. His successors continued this balancing act, trying to attract foreign investment while also promoting domestic enterprise. Yet, the legacy of debt remained. The country borrowed heavily again, leading to a default on its Eurobonds in 2020. Today, Zambia is navigating a complex debt restructuring process while trying to diversify its economy beyond copper, investing in agriculture, tourism, and renewable energy. The challenge remains immense, creating enough productive jobs for a rapidly growing young population, and ensuring that growth reaches the 60% of the population still living in poverty. From the soaring ambitions of Zambian humanism to the painful discipline of structural adjustment, Zambia's economic journey has been a turbulent one. It is a story of a nation that started with every advantage, only to see much of it squandered. Yet, through the busts and the booms, the Zambian people have shown a remarkable resilience, forever searching for the economic formula that will finally deliver the prosperity that independence once promised. Thank you for watching. If you found this history valuable, please like and subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective and keep the conversation going.